Hi, I'm on my way to LA Studios to meet with Jeff Howell. He's a casting director, voice coach, and a producer. Can't wait to see him, and can't wait to show you this interview. I am convinced that Jeff Howell has a portrait somewhere that's aging because he's lying. So I might ask him about that. So I have a lot of questions to ask him. I think it's going to be a very interesting interview, and I'm glad you can join me.
I just finished, about a month ago, doing one of my first long-form dubbing projects. And Netflix hired me to cast and direct a French film and dub it into English, basically, for a film called I'm Not an Easy Man. And it's on Netflix right now, and I must say I'm very, very proud of it. It was probably one of the toughest, hardest jobs I had facing me because I had directed ADR before, but I had never, ever directed a long-form dubbing project like this that required, it was over 65 voices and very specific voices. And the project was very intense in terms of the amount of script. It was pretty much wall-to-wall dialogue, you know, because a lot of films will have action moments and things like that and cutaways and all that, but this was just solid dialogue. And I had to learn some new technology. I had to learn this new software called VoiceQ that created all the prompts for the project. And instead of doing a 3-pop, we actually had it scrolling on a large screen. And Netflix had asked us, and I agreed, they wanted us to record it in such a way that it was group recording as opposed to individuals, which is unique and different because usually you know from doing ADR probably that it's you know, you have the 3-pop but you're alone, so there's no worry of overlap, where in this instance we had groups in there acting with each other, so we actually got much better performances, less sterile, let's say, but there was always a chance we had to be very acutely aware of the potential overlap. And so, you know, I had an assistant, I'd hired an assistant to help, and we had a bunch of years in there listening for overlap, but overall, I was just listening for performance and directing the performance in each scene. And I must say, we had such amazing talent, extraordinary talent, actually, that really made my job so easy and so much fun. But the challenge was that it was trying to learn how to adapt screenplays that and dialogue to fit lip flap, which is a real big issue. And it's not only the length of the line, but you're also looking at the lips within the lines and seeing if you can rearrange the words or rewrite the line to still have the same intent, but to match the lip flap. And after I saw the mix, I must say, I'm again very proud of the work that I did. And I showed it when I was in Dublin to the crowd, and they loved it. And the biggest compliment that I've received, and I got this from Netflix actually, was that a few minutes into it, you forget you're watching a dub. And I really think that in this instance, having watched now a lot of dub material, it's not that they're all terrible, but some of them, you know, are a little bit weaker than others. But now I certainly relate to the challenges of a dubbing project. But in this instance, I think we did a fairly good to an excellent job in most scenes in terms of matching lip flap and length. Now there's some where they're close-ups of the mouth and you just can't fake it, you know. But with most of the other scenes, it was pretty spot on. And then in addition, I've had a few, you know, projects with Disney in terms of there's a campaign going on, Power of Magic. It's a radio campaign, and I've been working on that for the last year. They come in periodically to update the tag message because there'll be new price offerings, price changes that we have to update. So I just finished that, and then I'm trying to think of other things. I think, you know, I always have a couple of promos going on out there that are being in production or being revised, and narration projects, but I think those two are the most recent. I've got an advertising project coming up in a week and a half, and I'm going into casting on it tomorrow.
So don't ask if your dreams are crazy. Ask if they're crazy enough.
I've got to go and actually read the script after I'm done with this call or this interview. So anyway, but that's pretty much it. And of course, teaching takes up a lot of my work, my focus.
That's it, Jeff? Nothing else?
Nothing else.
Get out of here. All right, Jeff. So you give us a little overview of your amazing and illustrious career.
So let's see. I'll take it back a little bit to my college. I went to Boston University, studied communications, and while I was there, I started interning at different companies, and I decided to intern at a radio station there in Boston. It was the university radio station. And I did the morning time, and I was dreadful on-air talent, but I enjoyed the whole process. And I did morning news. Thank God no one was listening. But at that point, I started really finding an interesting sort of part of the business. And so I worked there for a while, and then I went to a PR company, where we did theater PR, and I started really enjoying getting to know that part of the business as well. So, and then while I was at the university, I started working at the local TV station through for a graduate program and all that. So I did a bunch of different things there while I was in Boston. And then when I decided to move out to Los Angeles, I didn't really have anything lined up. So when I moved out here, I just started kind of investigating my options. I really didn't know what I wanted to do in the business. And so I worked at a extras casting company, or actually two of them. One of them was unpaid and one of them was paid. And I did that for a number of years. And then after that, they went out of business. And I was finding myself wondering exactly where I was going to fit in this crazy business. But having been on sets and really seeing a lot of the process in terms of how TV shows and films were shot, started giving me knowledge of what people did on the sets. I started eliminating things. Like I knew I didn't want to be a grip. I didn't want to be a cinematographer. I didn't want to be this and that. So anyway, I went to a temp agency and said, I need a job. Place me at talent agencies, management companies, production companies, because I remembered an instructor at BU had said, if you really want to learn the business, work at a talent agency. And so this temp agency started placing me in different talent agencies. I was at William Morris, at Creative Artist, various other ones. And then they placed me at an agency called Abrams, Rubaloff and Lawrence. I had never heard of them. Didn't seem that glamorous as compared to William Morris and Creative Artists. But I started there and they placed me in their voiceover department. And I remembered that, and this is in the mid-'80s, so voiceover wasn't as glamorous then as it is now. And so it was sort of a little hidden gem in the agency. And I remembered a friend of mine from Boston had been doing some voiceover work, and I always thought that was kind of odd because I just never really heard of it and wasn't familiar with it because, again, it wasn't that popular at that time. Anyway, so I started working there, and they offered me a job. And I thought, well, this is really interesting. I like the fact that they would hold auditions internally, and there was a studio in-house. And I thought, well, that's interesting. You can be an agent, do the business part, and also do the creative part as well. And so it really felt comfortable to me, and it felt right. And so I started working there, and within a year I was made a junior agent, and then after a year and a half I was made a full agent, and then I stuck with it and really loved it. And then 2 years later I was made director of the department, and then I ran the department for another 3 years, and I did, handled a lot of celebrities and a ton of VO talent. And it's interesting because a lot of people will say to me, well, you seem to have worked with a lot of people, because through the years, talent agencies are such a transition, a lot of actors coming and going. So over time, you end up representing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of actors. And so I cut my teeth during that time in terms of the voiceover business and worked with a ton of people. Cut to, I decided I didn't want to be an agent any longer. I went to a production company called Brightest and Company, which at that time was extremely popular, one of the biggest production companies for radio in town. And that's when comedy was so big and popular in the 90s. And I was very lucky to hit it at the right time. We did some great work there, and I worked with so many wonderful people, and a lot of sitcom stars and celebrities. And I did a ton of casting. I can't imagine how much I actually did over that time. But I also started directing at that time as well in terms of actual sessions, because we were so busy, they needed directors, so I'd fill in. Ironically, I was able to fill in on a lot of the TV stuff because it was a radio production company. Some of the TV productions came in, I got to direct those. So I directed a bunch of the animated Orkin spots, got to do the casting on those as well. So it was really a wonderful time for me to grow as a director. And then I started training actors at that time as well, because I was doing so much casting that I started taking classes in directing talent. So that was just a way of polishing my skills, was by working with actors and directing them and starting doing their demos and all that. Then I left there and went to a competitor called World Wide Wadio, and in that company we also, and this was in the early 2000s, we specialized in radio as well, because that's when the internet boom, the first one, started. And then of course we had that tragic actor strike that destroyed all the commercial business for a while. So we developed a healthy promo business during that time. And then the promo business really carried World Wide Wadio through to the mid-2000s. And we had so many clients. I worked with so many networks over the years and really grew in that area as well. And it's such a different read than the commercial read. So I was able to add to my resume in terms of teaching, not only the commercial read, which we were still doing at Wadio, just not as much, and then the promo reads, and we were doing a ton of those. And then in between, we're doing narrations as well and all that. So I was there for a long time. I was vice president of the production there at World Wide Wadio, and then left there 2 years ago and decided to go independent. And so since then, I have been an independent producer director. I have quite a busy teaching business, and in addition to that, I've been able to work on a huge, wide variety of productions, from animation, IVR, internet productions, a lot of narration, and promo and commercial. So it's been great just being able to experiment and create new clients, find new clients and create new business. And so it's been a really wonderful time.
That's amazing, isn't it? How you've jumped from one thing to the next to the next. It's like so many different opportunities. And I guess at the time it could have been like, feelings of uncertainty and nervousness. But you've just been out there conquering everything.
Well, it's survival, and also just being open to new opportunities, and also it helps to have just an extensive web of contacts, and having been doing this for so long that after a while you get a reputation, good or bad, and hope that it pays off, And I made strong alliances with a bunch of the talent agents, and having been an agent really gave me, I think, a really important perspective on how valuable the agents are and how much I do appreciate the agents. I really do. And I value their opinion, and I like to look at it as collaborative effort. Plus, I also understand the pressures they're under because I used to be one. And I know what they're going through every day with handling and managing talent. So I really try to be a very agent-friendly producer, and I try to give as much as I possibly can in my budget to them because I know they're doing really hard work. It's tough.
Let's just talk a little bit about some of the ways that voiceover has changed and how's that affected you since you started working in the industry, because there's been so many changes.
So the VO business, I think like almost every business, it's this almost living organism in that it's always evolving and changing, and we're so affected by pop culture and trends. And I think that the onset of seeing the internet grow in our time in the business has really affected the business quite a bit. And also, I think combined with the trends of hiring celebrities in commercials and animation has certainly changed. Not only has it changed the way business is done and how the hiring is done, but also it brought such a higher profile to voiceover, what used to be a sort of a smaller group that people didn't really pay attention to them in the industry. They just thought, there are those announcers out there that do voiceover. And it was a relatively small group of actors that worked quite a bit because they were the only ones that were skilled in that area, or in this area of voiceover. And so, now because of the popularity and the notoriety that celebrities have brought to it, I think it's really opened up a whole world of voiceover to the entire acting community out there. And so what used to be a good gig and not an easy gig to ever book, but you had a better chance of booking it because there were fewer people trying to compete. And now you're competing with people across the United States or even across the world. And so I think that our industry has changed so much. And I think a lot of it is because of not only seeing the internet grow and creating that kind of accessibility and being able to conduct business from all over the world, but also with the celebrities sort of highlighting it or bringing a spotlight to it has really changed, I think, our business as well, because it's just brought more awareness to it.
So I hear from many people that you have an amazing ability to connect with actors. Is it an intuitive thing? Is it just from experience? What is that like for you? How do you connect with these actors?
I think part of it is intuitive. I think that, you can go and train, you can study acting, you can study directing, and, go through that process of trying to just understanding how to, manipulate people in a good way, of course, and try to get performances from them. But I think there is an intuitive part of it in terms of just how to communicate with people. And I think communication is key. Having sat through numerous sessions where I had folks from the ad agency sitting behind me offering direction, and sometimes even though I knew what they were going for, it was puzzling to hear how they were trying to articulate that to the actors, communicate that to them. And it wasn't working, and I could see the disconnect on the actors' faces. So it's a matter of taking what the ad agency was trying to get and reword it in such a way that it fits in terms of the overall sort of glossary of acting technique and direction, and also understanding that maybe one term or piece of direction might work for one actor but not the other, and understanding just how they're taking the direction, maybe their headspace at that moment in time, and trying to make sure that they're able to get that direction, internalize it, and then give the performance that we really need. And that's it sounds easy, but it's actually really tough. And I'll say that a huge portion of my job is just communicating effectively, clearly, and because my goal as a producer, director, is trying to get the best performance from you and provide you an environment where we nurture you and try to get that performance from you. And it's really tough sometimes because it can change. You could come in for me one day and give me a performance based on a certain amount of direction. The next day, I could give you that same direction, and you may not take it the same way because you may have come in from a horrible day, a horrible morning on the freeway with the kids or the husband or what have you. And so I have to diffuse that and try to figure out a way around that. It's a little bit of a chess game in a way. And so, but it's also doing that in such a way that the actor always feels like that we're all on the same team, and that I'm here just to try to get a great performance from you in a relatively short amount of time.
What are some of the things that you do now to maintain the relationships that you've been gaining all these years? What are some of the things that you do?
Okay. Well, social media is probably right now my number one source of marketing and outreach is social media in terms of my business, in terms of teaching and coaching. By just promoting myself, I'll post a lot of things when I'm attending a play. I'll post if I'm attending some sort of event. If it's teaching at another facility, I'll try to just keep the word out there of what I'm doing so that if actors are interested in that and they see that I'm out there actually educating myself and just staying out there amongst the actors and the acting community, that will send out a message that I am trying to stay current and relevant, hopefully bring those experiences into the studio and help train actors and keep them current and able to stay in the game. In terms of my other side of marketing, in terms of trying to get my own production business going, that's a little trickier because you're always trying to figure out ways of reaching people without inundating them with mailers or emails or phone calls and all that, because everyone's busy. I know how busy I am, and I know how my inbox just gets full of junk and relevant information and request. And so it's a real challenge, and I don't really have the magic answer to that other than the fact that just making sure I make a lot of lists, try to keep up with the trends in terms of knowing who's doing what out there in terms of production. And, I'll sometimes do some cold calling. I'll certainly email. If I can get an email address on someone, I'll email them and send them a link to my website and try to, keep in touch that way. And networking. I don't go to a lot of networking events. I try to attend some of the conferences out there, like Promax, for example, and Comic-Con and things like that, just to show my face and have my pocket full of business cards and hopefully hand out a few if I can and hope that they'll remember me and all that. But, just like you guys, it's always a fight, and you'll have one contact who loves you and adores you, and the next thing you know, they've moved on or they're retired, and then you have to reestablish another contact. It's just constant, and I could be better at it, but I try the best I can. But I've been very fortunate that I've had a relatively nice sort of set of clients that come back to me periodically. And so, but I do know I need to always be out there promoting my own services.
Would you like a cup of coffee? I think we're going to have some fresh coffee in a minute.
I'm so sorry. I never realized how loud this corner is.
I mean, well, it's like amazing.
The burr and the...
We're making ice. We're having coffee.
coffee.
Sorry.
That's all right.
So funny.
Paul's going to have something to say, I'm sure.
I know.
Okay, so.
In terms of my coaching business, I do not currently have an organized large class, recurring class that I have myself. Now, I am in partnership with Jody Gottlieb, and she and I will hold probably quarterly classes here at LA Studios. And she's really wonderful at marketing, and she has a wonderful list that she'll send out mailers in terms of emails and post on Facebook, and I'll post on Facebook as well to try to get people, or at least let them know that it's going on. Because we do get a lot of people throughout the year going, oh, we want to take your class, but we weren't available the last time. Please let me know. And so we'll try to keep track of all that. So in terms of large classes, that's pretty much the only one in LA that's a regular for me. I will also teach for Mary Lynn Wisner over, she has a Meet the Pros night that's wonderful. It's very popular. I recommend a lot of people take with her in her classes. And she and Jody and I will do a triple threat class together occasionally here at LA Studios as well, which has been very popular. And anyway, so in terms of the LA area, that's pretty much it, other than my private coaching, which is anytime. I can Skype you. You can come into the LA Studios if you want. And I can do it on the weekends, nights, whatever. And so that's my current main focus is private coaching, which I actually prefer anyway. Now, in terms of other classes, though, I do go to San Francisco and teach at Voice Tracks occasionally up there. They'll sometimes have me for a semester, for a 6-month sort of term. They'll have me up about 3 or 4 times, and I'll coach anything from, or teach anything from commercial to promo to narration to home auditioning, which is becoming very, very popular. And so I'll do that. I'll go to New York periodically. I have a very dear friend of mine, Marla Curbin, who teaches in New York, and so I'll go, and whenever I'm in New York, I'll let her know, and so I'll pop in and coach one of her classes for her, and she's fantastic. And then periodically people will have me guest speak around LA at their classes and things like that. And as you know, we were just talking, Marilyn and I just finished a wonderful experience teaching in the UK, in Dublin. And then we went to London, and we taught in London at the VoiceOver Network. Rachel Naylor has this incredible organization, VoiceOver Network, and it's very popular. And so we went and taught there as well. So, I have my hands in a lot of pies teaching-wise. I should probably investigate trying to organize a class here. It's just that I'm in the fortunate position of being so busy with production that I just don't have the time or resources right now to devote to developing a full schedule of classes and things like that. But I think between all the ones I just mentioned, it's kept me pretty busy.
You know what I really would like to take a class with you on is a hands-on cake baking class. I mean, some of the desserts and things that I've seen you post, they're like, not only do they look amazingly delicious, but they're so beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Such an eye for detail.
It's sort of a hobby, really. My mother was an amazing baker, and I must say I must have gotten my appreciation and some of my confidence in baking from her, just watching her for the many years. Honestly, I wasn't that into baking when she was actually really actively baking because I was a kid, But I think just by being around it, you grow to appreciate it. Plus, it was delicious, But then over time, I sort of I started learning and teaching myself and learning it. And of course, it didn't hurt that I was doing promos for Food Network for years. And so I really started really appreciating baking by just watching Food Network and dealing with the creatives there and going to Food Network in New York and seeing the facilities and all that. It really is an amazing thing over there. But anyway, I just love it. It's just a great hobby, and it's one that my neighbors love because I give them food. And of course, everywhere I work, I always bring in food. In fact, the other day I brought in some cookies that I'd made and some cakes and all that. And, I enjoy being able to share, the fruits of my labor,
It's better to share.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can't afford to eat it all myself.
Don't you find that there's something a little meditative about baking?
Absolutely.
I love to cook and I love to bake.
Mm-hmm.
Not lately, though. I've been far too busy, and during the week I cannot focus on it. But when I can, it's just, it kind of like takes you out of everything else. And that's the only thing that you're thinking about, right? Exactly.
Well, and to your point, I don't know about you, but I've sometimes made the mistake of multitasking, and that's one of my, sometimes I do way too many things at the same time. So therefore, sometimes something suffers. And I have sometimes been in the kitchen and I've had my earpiece on and I'm sitting there talking to someone, or I'm talking to an actor, not coaching I would never do that, but just talking to someone, and I'll forget that I already added the ingredient, or I'll do something really stupid like that. So I learned my lesson, and so I put my phone away and I'll put on music basically, because I think the music is it's in the background and kind of gets me in the mood and all that. But it is very magic because it makes you have to focus. So you can't think about anything else. You only can focus on that one thing at that moment in time. So for that, yes, you're right. It's very kind of meditative, zen in a way. And again, it's just wonderfully creative.